Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is a review of the 1992 direct-to-video sequel, Critters 4. They're invading your space. And if you ask me, this film needs to get out of my personal space because it stinks. Uh, I'm not a fan of this film. I thought Critters 4 sucked. I thought this was an incredibly disappointing, frustrating, infuriating sequel. Yes, I've seen worse. I'm going to lay it all out here. I've seen a lot worse sequels, a lot worse direct-to-video movies than Critters 4, but the fact that there is potential here and the fact that that potential was lost in space, that's what makes this film different than some of those other direct-to-video films that are worse in terms of overall quality. To me personally, and I've always kind of felt this way, if a film has potential and it's wasted and it sucks for the most part because of that, that's worse than a film that is incompetent all the way around. Because there was no hope to be had for that other film in the first place. It had no chance in hell of ever being anything other than a pile of garbage. Something like this had potential, but because of the decisions that were made with the screenplay, because of the limitations that were pressed on it by the fact that it was a part of some ridiculous let's shoot two critters back to back concept by the producer, the film never really was given a fair chance, a fair shot, or the overall ability to live up to its full potential in the first place. So I'm not going to be as harsh on it as I might be on other films that I also don't like, but I'm also not going to give it a pass despite its limitations, because there's still more things that they could have done, and there's definitely some certain things that they could have done differently that would have made it better, even with the limitations that the film had. So the film is directed by Rupert Harvey, and he was one of the producers for the other Critters films, and he really wanted to direct. He wanted to direct a movie, and Barry Opper was friends and collaborators with Rupert, and he decided, okay, this is a prime opportunity to give Rupert his chance in the sun. You know, his shot at directing. And the direction for first time director isn't half bad. But I don't think he was the right director for the job, and here's the reason why. His sensibilities, his overall approach to directing doesn't fit with this franchise. The film has a much darker tone to it, and a lot of it is from the way that it's shot, with the lighting and everything. And he also lent his hand to the screenplay as well, along with David J. Shaw. And because of that, this is a much darker, dour, really honestly depressing Critters film. And that does not fit and mesh at all with this franchise. This franchise is all about being zany, over the top, with cartoonish elements. The franchise is at its best being lighthearted, not this dark, dour, serious approach. It doesn't work with this franchise. It's not a match that's or a pairing that's effective. Despite the fact that the direction isn't bad, it's just not good for this franchise. And therefore, it is kind of bad because it doesn't fit with this overall series of films. Yes, you can do goofy, silly, cartoony stuff with this franchise and do it horribly and do it the wrong way, but that doesn't mean that that's not the approach you should take with this particular series, with this franchise. That's one of the big reasons why it stands out. That's one of the big reasons why at least the first two films are so well liked and well loved by a lot of the fans of the franchise, is because of that. This taking a more serious Event Horizon alien approach with its cinematography, with its direction, and with its overall tone does not at all in any capacity to me personally match or mesh with this franchise. I think it bears repeating because that's one of the biggest problems that this film has. Also, what's the big deal about critters going to space in the first place? They're from space. This isn't like Jason X or Leprechaun 4 or Hellraiser Bloodline, where you have these characters that are put into a scenario where they're like fish out of water. This isn't that kind of thing. The critters are already in their comfort zone if they're in space because they're aliens. They were space prisoners, for Christ's sakes. It doesn't make it like, oh, they're in space. So, is that really a big deal? That being said, I don't mind the idea of critters in a space station. It's a new environment. It's a new setting for them. It's definitely new for the franchise, and it's a great looking set. But in order to really get the most out of that, to get the most bite, to get the best overall meal out of this concept, they needed to wait. This film should have been shot a year or a few months after they did Critters 3, with its own budget, with its own separate time constraints, so it was able to breathe, and so it was able to do more, and to really have more critters doing more things, and the Kyoto brothers were given more time to be able to do more inventive stuff. That was never going to happen with the time constraints and the idea that Barry Opper came up with. Maybe he thought that it would never have gotten made if he didn't ask New Line right away to do them back to back. I honestly disagree. New Line at this point was doing a lot of direct-to-video stuff. Hell, they did The Hidden 2. And I will say this, as bad as Critters 4 is, it's a million times better than The Hidden 2. But they did that. So they were doing a lot of direct-to-video stuff. Not only direct-to-video sequels, they were doing a lot of direct-to-video films, period. So at this particular time period in 92, I'm sure that they would have signed off on more Critter sequels with, oh, we're going to shoot 3 and then we're going to do 4 a little bit later. I think they would have been fine with that. I really do think New Line would have signed off on that. And if not, heck, just wait after Critters 3 comes out on home video, and I think it did pretty decent. So once the returns came in for Critters 3, then you do another one. And with the more time, you'd be able to really think things through, and you'd really be able to make a much better movie. Instead, you have a half-assed sequel and a half-assed product because you didn't have the time and you didn't have the money. So, huge, massive mistake in my part from Barry Opper and the producers and everyone involved when it comes to this movie, because it never stood a chance and they really should have known better. Because you only have like 2 critters throughout the entire running time for the most part. Yes, it's a fun idea of the space station and the critters can roll around and have multiple different places to hide in, but there's not really enough critters to do anything extensive or fun in terms of hijinks. Rupert Harvey seems like that's not his thing, so that wasn't going to happen probably anyway. And there is a sequence where you have more than one critter, but you don't see anything done with it because of the budget. This critters show up in one scene. There's more than one critter. They've multiplied. They're in a room. Some stormtrooper ripoff characters come into the room. The door closes. You hear them scream. It cuts away. You don't see anything. So, and it's essentially left that those critters died off screen. For the most part, the critter action is limited to only 2 critters. And there's a sequence with a baby critter, which is the best sequence in terms of a critter in the entire movie, and that's like what, 30 minutes into the film? And this is a movie this is like one of the longest Critters films. It's a running time of 105 minutes, too long, way too long. This film, it has a glacial slow pacing because of the fact that it takes a while for the critters to even show up. Once they do show up, there's only two of them. It blows its wad with this most inventive, creative kill way too early in the film with the critter baby jumping in this guy's mouth. And then after that, it's a long wait for anything. A lot of it's just these characters walking around these corridors or bitching at one another. And you're dealing with Charlie and how he's thawed out, and it's so many years later, and he's dealing with what's going on and trying to build new relationships with new characters. Um, and then there's some moments that are all right with critters. Like there's a sequence near the end where a critter gets killed by getting frozen with a hose of liquid nitrogen. It's a nice looking effect. It's a fun gag, but it ultimately doesn't save the film. And then on top of that, you have infuriating, aggravating, just mind-numbingly dumb and idiotic character decisions that are made, which I'm going to get to last because I want to save that for last, because if I go on tangent and rant about that, I'm going to not have enough time to talk about the other stuff. So yeah, the screenplay by David J. Shaw and Joseph Lyle, and it's and Rupert Harvey, who I think also helped a little bit. The script, it's not the worst in the world, but in some aspects, it's Last Jedi bad, and I'll get to why soon enough. There's not enough critter fun. There's even a sequence where they could have done something crazy or silly or fun, and they never do it. There's a pharmacy full of all different types of drugs. You could have had a scene where a critter is high in pills, and they didn't do it. They didn't go there, and it was right there, sitting right in front of them, and they never took advantage of it. Decided to take things seriously in a Critters sequel. And now we get to what I'm talking about, what I mean by Last Jedi bad in terms of character writing and so on and so forth. I hate the ending of this movie. Up until the ending, there's some stuff I can deal with. It's boring because there's not a lot of critters and there's not a lot of stuff going on, but there's still some characters that I don't mind. Specifically, I really liked Albert, played by Brad Dourif. Brad Dourif lent his quintessential quirkiness to the role, and it was an enjoyable character and a likable performance. And it was one of those things that I wish that role was in a better movie, because it was nice to see Brad Dourif essentially play a captain of a ship, because that's really what he was doing here. That's what makes the ending even more frustrating, because it's not only do they fuck up with one character, they also fuck another character in the ass. So I really hate the ending of this movie. The ending of this film brings the movie down quite a bit. It's not one of the worst endings I've seen in a movie, but it's definitely one of the most frustrating, because it was not necessary in any way or any capacity. So yeah, there's other characters, Charlie, although Charlie isn't as memorable or as fun here because he doesn't have anybody to work with. He has no chemistry with any of the cast members because they're so new, or the characters, and so he doesn't really have a lot of action bits because his gun doesn't work. So he just feels like he's a hanger-on in this cast. He doesn't really get a whole lot to do. I didn't mind Angela Bassett, her performance as Fran, but the character, other than a moment where she gets to punch Anders Hove's butthole character, Captain Rick Buttram, which I still can't believe that's actually his last name. The character's last name is Buttram. And if you've seen this movie, it's fitting. The guy's a butthole, so it fits. But anyway, she punches him, It was a nice scene, but other than that, she has a few physical bits here and there, but she just plays a tough gal character to a T, and that's really it. But where the film takes a massive fucking flop into a trash compactor full of shit, piss, and bile is with what they do to the character of Ugg. So Terrence Mann takes time out of his busy career in Broadway to do some more scenes and to do another Critters film. And he seems to be okay with this, and that's okay. It's fine. I mean, to each their own. But I hate this. I hate this bullshit, period. I hate it when movies do this, where they take characters that are established as good guys, and then because they're running out of ideas and the screenwriter is running out of time, they turn them into villains. And they don't really build things up or make the villain turn compelling or interesting. It's just a fucking bullshit twist. And that's exactly what they do with the character of Ugg. And it's ugly and it pisses me off. So now Ugg, after all this time, now he's corrupt and he's an evil businessman who's ruthless and is just a fucking asshole who's killing people and just wants the eggs and so on and so forth. Even when Charlie's trying to speak to him and trying to get him to snap out of it, he's like, things change. And then you have this scene where it's just depressing and it's sad, where you watch Charlie shoot what is honestly the last person in the universe that knows him, that has any sort of connection with him, in the fucking head until he's dead. And that's the fucking ending of the movie, is Charlie shooting Ugg in the head and saying things change. I'm like, yeah, they change, and they change not for the better, but for the worse. And if that isn't bad enough, then Brad Dourif's character, Albert, he gets fucking shot before any of that nonsense. So now I don't have Brad Dourif's character. He doesn't make it to the end. Instead, I have this annoying pretty boy who sucks, who's honestly kind of a jerk off in his own right. Ethan, played by Paul Whitthorne, who came across as a whiny brat for most of the movie. No, he lives, but not Brad Dourif. We're just going to have him get shot in the stomach by Ugg over here, who's now an asshole for some reason. And here's the thing. If you wanted to do that plot line, have it be some kind of mind control chip or something. It's against his will. Charlie then shoots him, but he shoots it off because he actually isn't able to actually go through with it, or something happens. Maybe he shoots him in the shoulder, he falls into an electrical panel, and the electricity short circuits the chip. And now Ugg is back to normal. And now you have a climax where Ugg and Charlie and Brad Dourif, they team up and they hunt down the last of the critters. No. Nope. Let's have Ugg be an asshole. Let's kill off Brad Dourif. And then let's also kill Ugg and have Charlie be the one that shoots him. And then we'll have an ending where Charlie is now with this other crew of people he barely even knows, spinning around in the galaxy to a song that doesn't fit at all to the setting, to the scene. Sounds like something from a country western bar. And that's your ending of the movie. I hate this ending. I hate it so much. When I saw this ending, I was seething. I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. What the fuck is this bullshit Critters for? If you just made it so Ugg isn't an asshole, this film honestly could be average to me. Well, you also don't kill off Brad Dourif. Don't kill off Brad Dourif. Don't make Ugg an asshole. And it's an okay time waster. But with that ending, it it gets sent off into a black hole of suckitude. And also the fact they couldn't do anything because of the budget and because of the fact that it was shot back to back. So speaking of the characters, might as well talk about the cast. But pretty much I've already said my thoughts on the cast. I mean, Don Opper, he's back as Charlie, but it's not really the best performance because he's not really given that much to do. And he doesn't really have any chemistry with anybody. Terrence Mann as Counselor Tetra, fucking hated that character. Mann does fine. He does a good job playing a villain, but I did not like that. Angela Bassett, like I said, plays a tough gal to a T. Does a good job with that. Brad Dourif, I really liked. Doesn't matter. He fucking dies like a bitch. He doesn't even fight. He doesn't even die like a hero. He doesn't make some noble sacrifice. He gets shot in the stomach. Might as well have gotten shot in the dick. Really. Anders Hove plays the butthole captain who gets his just desserts. And you have Martine Beswick, who plays the voice of the computer of the space station, Angela. She was, I believe, Sister Hyde in Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde. That's one gag I also liked in the film in terms of the very brief moments of humor that this movie has, where the computer is so messed up it can't even operate properly. So in order for you to get it to do something, you have to tell the computer not to do something. I liked that. But there's a lot of other stuff that just doesn't work. And, I mean, the fucking ending. It kills the film. It steamrolls the movie into oblivion. It's just... There's no hope. No recovery from that. It's just fucked. And you, the audience member and a fan of the franchise, is also fucked by that ending. But I don't really know what else to say about Critters 4. It's one of those films where it's pretty straightforward. Critters are in a space station, but there's only two of them, so there's not a lot that goes on. And then you have this bullshit, try hard twist at the end with Ugg. Barry Opper, I guess he kind of nowadays is sort of regretted that move. Good, he should. That was not needed. This has a decent looking transfer, definitely better than the full screen version that was released previously. There's another little featurette, but this is the weakest documentary on the entire box set. There's like 10 minutes of content. There's other stuff that's just repeats of stuff that you already heard in other documentaries. Like there's a bit with Don Opper talking about, oh, I can't believe some of the people really like this movie. You know, there's people who have like tattoos and stuff of critters. I'm like, you already said that in like the interview, I think, for the first movie. Why is that repeated in the documentary for the fourth film? And then there's other stuff that's just kind of repeats and rehashes of stuff. There's a lot of padding in this documentary to even get to the 22-minute mark. So yeah, there's not a lot of information or a lot of interesting stuff, sadly, with the featurette for Critters 4. So even that kind of sucks. But anyway, I guess I would recommend this if you're already watching these Critters films or you're already kind of into them. You might as well watch it. But such a disappointment. It's a bad egg. It's the rotten egg of the franchise, at least up until this point. I mean, there are worse Critters films than Critters 4. And trust me, I'll get to them soon enough. Sadly, this is the last Critters film that had any potential. No, I would say Critters Attack had some potential too that was wasted, but in a different way. But this is the last Critters film, to me, that still has more than one thing about it that I liked. So ultimately, it's a frustrating film that I thought sucked, but I would say it's closer to below average than a straight up stinker or a straight up piece of shit, but it's knocked down at least half a peg because of the infuriating decisions by the screenwriters with particular characters. But yeah, that's an underwhelming end to this particular portion of the franchise, sadly. And I hope you enjoyed the video. And as always, I'll see you later. See ya.